Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Whitaker, you and I are both lawyers. My first day of crim law, my professor came in and said, if someone asks you a yes or no question, don't just repeat the question, answer yes or no. Otherwise, during your career, people will think you're not a good lawyer. We know you're a good lawyer. Let's heed that advice going forward. In November 2018, we didn't. The advice is good nonetheless. In November 2018, Chris Wallace asked the president a question. He said, do you know before you appointed him that he, meaning you, had a record that was so critical of Robert Mueller? And the president said, I didn't know that. I didn't know that he took views on the Mueller investigation. Do you believe President Trump was telling the truth when he said that he just did not know that you were critical of Mueller before your appointment?
Congressman, the president
I am going to go back to right now. I understand how it all worked. I'm just asking you, do you believe the president was telling the truth when he said he did not know that you had been critical of Robert Mueller before making your appointment?
Congressman, I have no reason to believe when I sit here today the president wasn't saying what he believed.
Who'd you interview with for the chief of staff job? Not for this job, for the chief of staff job.
It was General Sessions' decision to make. I interviewed with him, and he offered me the job.
And before you got the job, did you ever, before you took this job, did you ever speak with the president about the Mueller probe from May 17, 2017 to September 22nd, 2017?
Are you saying about before I was actually the chief of staff?
I'm saying between May 17, 2017.
Congressman, I had never met the president until after I joined the Department of Justice.
So have you? Let me just ask you another question. You didn't communicate with him. Did you communicate with anyone at the White House about the special counsel investigation before September 22nd, 2018?
I assume you're excluding my appearances on CNN. Because I don't know who at the White House was watching my appearances.
If you talk to anybody at the White House, I mean, you've told me that the president wasn't watching those, otherwise he would have been aware of your positions. So I assume the president wasn't watching. Did you talk about those appearances with anyone at the White House?
I did not talk about my appearances on CNN.
Did you talk about your views of the Mueller investigation with anyone at the White House?
I did not talk about my views of the Mueller investigation with any at the White House in this time period, essentially May of 2017, until I joined the Department of Justice in October of 2017.
And when you were, throughout that process, did you ever communicate with anyone? Here's the question. But by my count, you made 6 comments in op-eds, talk radio, or on cable news critical of the special counsel between the time you interviewed in June 2017 and the time you were hired as chief of staff to the Attorney General. Did you ever use any intermediaries? Did you have anyone, since the president didn't know, did you have anyone communicate with the White House or anyone at the White House, either staff members, friends, or others, to let them know exactly where you stood as expressed in at least those 6 public statements?
Congressman, I had, at the time you described, May of 17 until I joined the department on October 4th of 2017, I didn't have a relationship with the White House.
Did you talk to any White House personnel before you were hired? Anyone at the White House?
Congressman,
That's an easy one. Did you talk to anyone at the White House? Is the answer no?
Congressman, I had previously been at the White House when I was a private citizen to talk about a different position.
No, I understand, but did you talk to anyone at the White House about your views on Mueller? Any personnel at the White House at all before you assumed the position?
In May,
let me just go forward, because here's the issue. When you became the Attorney General, since becoming the Attorney General, you said that you've been briefed on the special counsel. Did you use anyone else to have communications? Did you do anything to make sure that the White House might have learned some of what you learned in those briefings? Could it be that someone else on your staff might have spoken to someone at the White House, since you told us you didn't?
Congressman, I'm not aware of that happening.
Who else? How many people were in those briefings with you when you're briefed about the Mueller investigation?
Congressman, I'm not going to go into the specifics of the briefing, but it was a very limited group. There was only one member of my staff who was present with me.
And have you ever attempted to use any intermediaries to get information to the president or others on his staff?
No, I have not attempted to use any intermediaries to get information to the president.
So I'll close, Mr. Chairman, just by saying this is going to be a long hearing. We're going to go on for a while. The concern that we have, Mr. Whitaker, is that there was no Senate confirmation here. We're not the Senate, but the administration justified their decision in picking you under the Vacancies Reform Act. There was a law on the books for the Attorney General's succession and the authority to oversee the special counsel's work. It goes from one Senate-confirmed official to another, from the AG, Deputy AG, Associate Attorney AG, Solicitor General, Assistant Attorney General, the Attorney General in charge of the Office of Legal Counsel, Assistant AG for National Security, Assistant AG in charge of the Criminal Division, and on and on and on. None of them are the Chief of Staff to the Attorney General. I think what we're trying to figure out is, why is it exactly that the president chose to go beyond the statute and choose you? And I hope over the balance of this hearing that'll become clear. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Congressman. I believe the president chose me to be the acting attorney general for a couple of reasons. First, I had served previously in the department as the United States Attorney, which is a very important position, as Mr. Radcliffe previously stated, and in the administration of justice. And for 13 months, I was the Chief of Staff for Attorney General Sessions, and I had done the full year with him side by side. Obviously, he made the decisions, but I gave him advice and counsel, and I was aware of everything that was going on at the Department of Justice that General Sessions wasn't recused from. And so I think the president was comfortable that to continue the momentum at the Department of Justice that we had established in addressing these important priority issues like reducing violent crime, combating the opioid crisis, and others, that the president felt I was best positioned to do the duties of Attorney General.